Well, the House Select Committee investigating the deadly January 6th insurrection of the U.S. Capitol, holding its 7th hearing this afternoon.
Yeah, and that committee set out to focus on the extremist groups today who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, including the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And also we heard from testimony from White House counsel Pat Cipollone.
If your question is, did I believe he should concede the election at a point in time, yes, I did.
All right, let's bring in Chief Legal Correspondent Seem Iyer, who was covering this hearing gavel to gavel. I was up here, some intense testimony today, but let's talk about Pat Cipollone, who we just heard right here. Kind of give me your perspective as to what you thought were the big take-home moments from Pat Cipollone's testimony.
Well, his presence during these important meetings, the fact that Trump knew that there was no fraud in the election and that he was told that repeatedly, and also the factions within that White House, right? Trump had his people, and Cipollone was very honest without being insulting. Yeah. About, hey, why was that Overstock guy there? What was he doing there? And Sidney Powell, and then of course Michael Flynn. There was also testimony about that. So Cipollone was your typical government lawyer, in my opinion. He took an oath. He's an officer of the court. He told the truth, and he didn't do too much. He had no axe to grind. When asked specific questions about Donald Trump, when he had to, he invoked the executive privilege. And I thought that was very telling that he definitely is a rule follower, guys.
It was introduced a lot with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and those extremist groups, but should Trump be more worried about the communications with his cutouts that could tie him to the insurrection and those extremist groups like the Alex Jones, the Steve Bannon, or Roger Stones?
Great question. Okay, so Alicia and I were talking a little bit about this. Now, there's two things I want to discuss. Now, one, Roger Stone, yes. The communications that he made with Roger Stone, did Roger Stone convey those to the Proud Boys? The Proud Boys were Roger Stone's security. So that is the connection you want to make, that Trump was directly linked to the violence. And I know we have those links through that he knew that the magnetometers and that there was weapons and such being brought in. So that's one part. The other thing, and Alicia and I, we didn't talk about this afternoon, but I wanted to save something for prime time, and that is there's this concept called attenuation. And what attenuation basically says is from one bad act to the second bad act, too much time should not pass. Here's my point. If Trump tweets on 12/19, you want to make a continuous connection to the bad acts on January 6th. Otherwise, there's a break in time. I hope that makes sense, but it's an important concept.
It is. All right, dealing with the extremist groups, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, was there enough evidence today to prove that Trump knew violence was going to be there on January the 6th?
I think I just go back to there still needs to be a few more connections made with Alex Jones, Roger Stone, Steve Bannon. We may not see that. I think there was enough that the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, they committed violence. But did Trump know that violence was going to occur? And again, we talked about the Charlottesville rally. Jamie Raskin, and Brian, you probably know this, Jamie Raskin went deep dive into Charlottesville. Afterwards, he became an expert in this white nationalist movement. That's probably why he led the questioning today. And why is this important? Because during Charlottesville, a lot of the main players were distancing themselves from the minions, okay? Because their whole, their claim was, we're these big celebrities, we're these alt-right leaders, we're not telling everybody what to do, they're just following us. Very analogous to what happened on January 6th, because somebody like Steve Ayers is not going to be hanging out with Trump. And for Steve Ayers to think that Trump was going to meet up with them was simply foolish. It was just simply celebrity.
The Insurrection Act to make them a paramilitary leader and part of the whole organization. And also, Jamie Raskin did kind of tease there. He says, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Does that mean there's going to be more hearings,
or more hearings, but also more testimony from Pat
testimony.
Cipollone? I mean, I think that was one of the things today. I mean, he testified for almost 8 hours.
Well,
on
there
Friday.
better be more because there wasn't enough of Pat Cipollone, and frankly, there wasn't enough of Steve Ayers for me today. I would have liked to hear a lot more live testimony, a lot more deposition, less politicians.
And Liz Cheney also did tease about more witness tampering, possibly from Trump, knowing the witnesses that Trump contacted afterwards, after the hearings.
Well, what do you expect? I mean, we already know that Cassidy Hutchinson was rushed to testify because somebody was trying to tamper with her and they were trying to protect her. So Trump is going to, if that is his pattern, he's going to try to tamper with every single witness he can get their phone number to.
And that's why we're going to hear less and less as to who is testifying just moments before the hearing takes place.